What if the Epstein files were never meant to give you a clear answer, but to leave you asking better questions? Not about one man, but about how power really works in America. When people hear Jeffrey Epstein, they expect a list, a final reveal, a moment where everything becomes clear and powerful names are finally exposed. But that's not what these documents give us. And when it comes to Bill Clinton, the truth is far more complicated than the headlines. The public record shows there was a connection. Bill Clinton had contact with Epstein after leaving office. He traveled on Epstein-linked aircraft. His office later stated those trips were tied to foundation work, that staff and security were present, and that he knew nothing about Epstein's crimes. They also said he never visited Epstein's island and had not been in contact with him for many years. So now, we're left with a tension that defines this entire story. On one side, documented association. On the other, no publicly proven criminal wrongdoing. And that gap is where the real story lives. Because Epstein wasn't just a criminal. He was a system built on access, proximity, and carefully constructed relationships with powerful people. Presidents, billionaires, celebrities. Epstein didn't hide from power. He moved inside it. And that's what makes the Clinton connection so persistent. Not necessarily because it proves something illegal, but because it reveals something deeper. It shows how someone like Epstein could move through elite networks for years without being stopped. Think about that. In a country with some of the most powerful institutions in the world, a man like Epstein built a circle of influence filled with high-profile figures, and that alone helped protect him. That's not just an individual failure. That's a system failure. Now let's be clear. The documents, as they exist publicly, do not establish that Bill Clinton committed crimes with Epstein. That distinction matters. But ignoring the significance of the connection misses the bigger picture. Because power is not only about what can be proven, it's about what is allowed. So how does someone gain that level of access? Reputation. In elite circles, reputation acts like a shield. If enough respected people stand near you, your credibility grows, even if it shouldn't. And once that happens, suspicion doesn't disappear. It gets delayed. People assume someone else already checked. Someone else already knows. And that's how silence spreads. This is not new. After Watergate, Americans learned power can lie. After financial crises, they learned power can fail without consequence. And after Epstein, many began to question something even deeper: whether power can exist near wrongdoing without ever being held accountable for allowing it. That doesn't mean everyone in Epstein's orbit is guilty, but it does mean the public no longer trusts elite distance as proof of innocence. And that's where Bill Clinton becomes symbolic. He represents a world of influence, politics, global networks, philanthropy, power. So, when his name appears in this story, people aren't just reacting to one man. They're reacting to the system he represents. A system where access is easy for the powerful, where relationships blur lines, and where influence creates insulation. Because the Epstein files don't give us a clean ending. They give us fragments, documents, logs, statements, enough to raise questions, but not enough to close the case in the public mind. And that's why this story keeps coming back. Not because every new document changes everything, but because it reminds people of something they already feel. That something about power and accountability in America isn't working the way it should. So, what do the documents really show about Bill Clinton? They show connection. They show access. They show proximity to a world that should have been questioned sooner. But they do not based on public information prove criminal wrongdoing. And maybe that's the most uncomfortable truth of all, because sometimes the biggest problem isn't what we can prove. It's what we can't fully explain. How did this happen? How did it last so long? And why does it still feel unfinished? That is the real cipher behind the Epstein files. Not just what they reveal, but what they suggest about how power protects itself. If you want to explore more stories about hidden networks, power, and the untold side of history, subscribe to PastCipher, because the past is never really gone. It's encrypted, and we're here to decode